Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. They call it a flaw, a weakness, woven into the genetic tapestry of one of the Imperium's most noble chapters. But the red thirst is more than that. It's a curse, an unrelenting hunger that haunts the sons of Sanguinius, like the echo of a scream lost to time. To those outside the Blood Angels, it is a fearsome oddity, a dangerous quirk in a world filled with monsters. But to those within, it is a nightmare that never ends, a constant battle between glory and oblivion, honor and horror. The thirst is not a choice. It is the last whisper of a dying angel, looping through the souls of his sons. And now, there are whispers that it's getting worse, that the thirst has grown deeper, darker, that it gnaws more ferociously at the hearts of even the most stalwart brothers. In a galaxy ablaze with war and madness, could it be that the red thirst is more than a curse? Could it be a prophecy unraveling? A reckoning long delayed, now catching up to the Blood Angels at last? The death of Sanguinius was not just the loss of a Primarch. It was the sundering of something far deeper, a metaphysical shattering that echoed through the blood of every one of his sons, then and forevermore. On the floor of the Emperor's throne room, as Horus struck the killing blow, something ancient and essential tore free from reality. Sanguinius was no ordinary being. In him pulsed a resonance of empathy, nobility, and tragic foresight unlike any other in the Emperor's grand experiment. When he died, it was not merely his body that was destroyed, it was his psychic imprint, his perfect self-image, his emotional anchor. What remained was the hollow scream of his demise, a wound that bled across time, lodged like a psychic shard within every Blood Angel. Before Terra, the red thirst was an unearthed seed, a flaw buried in the gene seed. Yes, but dormant, manageable. Sanguinius could suppress it by sheer will. He was their guiding light, the unbreakable lens through which the Blood Angels viewed themselves. His presence was the dam holding back the flood. But with his fall came a psychic detonation, an outpouring of agony so immense it seared itself into the collective unconscious of his sons. His final moments, full of defiance, grief, and unwavering courage, replayed in their minds not as memory, but as nightmare. And from that nightmare the thirst was born, no longer a mutation but a haunting. The horror of that loss was more than emotional, it was metaphysical. The warp does not forget pain. It feeds on it, reflects it, amplifies it. And Sanguinius, being a creature of such purity and vision, left behind a psychic echo so potent that it bled into the very fabric of his lineage. The thirst is not just bloodlust, it is longing for his presence, his perfection, his absolution. It is the ache of sons abandoned by light, trying to fill that void with anything that mimics vitality. Blood, fury, victory. But there is something more insidious beneath this tragic bond. Some among the librarians whisper that in Sanguinius's final vision, he saw not only Horus, not only the fate of mankind, but the doom that would follow in his own children. That his scream was not just of physical pain, but of terrible foresight, seeing the red thirst consuming his sons over 10,000 years, spiraling into something he could never prevent. And so his death was not only a moment of tragedy, it was a curse sent rippling through the ages, one the Emperor could neither cleanse nor contain. From that moment forward, the thirst was no longer a defect, it was a destiny, and it reshaped the chapter from within. The Blood Angels grew more introspective, more baroque, more ritualistic. Their art became drenched in sorrow. Their faces were etched with quiet pain. They trained harder, fought more fiercely, hoping that valor might mask the hunger. But always it waited, like the echo of Sanguinius's dying breath, repeating in every brother's soul, begging for release. This is why the red thirst cannot be treated like a biological disease. It is not simply gene seed corruption. It is the inheritance of trauma, the psychic inheritance of a soul torn apart. It is a communion not just with a father lost, but with the moment of his loss, stretched across eternity. And as the galaxy grows darker, that moment grows louder, more resonant, more unbearable. The thirst is not just returning, it is remembering. To understand the agony of the red thirst, one must place it beside its darker sibling, the black rage. They are often conflated by outsiders. Both are afflictions of the Blood Angels. Both reduce noble warriors to barely restrained monsters, and both are rooted in the same primal event. But their differences are profound, and perhaps more terrifying than their similarities. The red thirst is a creeping hunger, a constant whisper at the edge of sanity. The Black Rage is a catastrophic eruption, a total psychotic break in which the Marine relives the death of Sanguinius as if he were there dying with his Primarch again and again. The red thirst corrodes from within. The Black Rage explodes outward like a dying star. The red thirst is subtle. It manifests in small acts, unnecessary brutality, an unquenchable bloodlust during battle, an obsessive desire to consume the vitality of others. It gnaws at the soul, warping dreams, sharpening instincts, demanding sacrifice. The afflicted remain aware of it, and that self-awareness becomes part of the torment. Many of the greatest blood angels, heroes like Astaroth or Mephiston, have walked the edge of the thirst and returned, not unscathed, but empowered by sheer force of will. It is not merely a struggle of body, it is spiritual warfare. Those who master the thirst do not become immune. They become prison wardens of their own soul. The Black Rage is different. It strikes like a bolt of warp lightning, unprovoked and irreversible. When a brother falls into the rage, he is no longer himself. He becomes a fragment of Sanguinius, trapped in the final moments aboard the vengeful spirit. He fights ghosts, screams at shadows, slays friend and foe alike until restrained. Those who succumb to the Black Rage are clad in black armor, marked by the red teardrop, and sent into battle as living martyrs. They are the Death Company, doomed warriors who burn with divine madness. There is no cure, only death. And yet, the line between these afflictions is not so clear. There are those within the chapter who whisper that the red thirst is the prelude to the Black Rage, that it is the ember before the inferno, the slow cracking of the psyche before it shatters entirely. If that is true, then every blood angel who feels the thirst is walking toward the edge of the abyss, and only time or trauma will tip them into the fall. What makes this distinction especially cruel is the awareness it demands. A brother falling into the Black Rage is often lucid just long enough to realize what is happening. There are accounts, harrowing, whispered in sorrow, of brothers begging to be slain before the visions consume them, of captains forced to execute their friends before the transformation is complete. The red thirst, by contrast, is an enemy one can hide. But at what cost? How many have succumbed slowly, secretly, becoming more bestial by the hour, hiding their degradation behind noble armor? This internal war defines the chapter's culture. They revere artistry and beauty not out of luxury, but as a shield against the madness. Every fresco, every statue, every oath is a bulwark against the beast within. The red thirst is the soul's decay. The Black Rage is the moment of annihilation. Both are the wages of loyalty. Both are scars of Sanguinius' fall, and they are spreading. Reports from successor chapters, especially the Flesh Tearers, show more frequent, more violent outbreaks of both conditions. Librarians record psychic flares among the Death Company that grow more vivid, more tangible, as if the warp itself is beginning to believe in their delusions. Some even say that the line between red thirst and Black Rage is eroding, that the two afflictions are merging into a single, terminal fate. In this cruel duality, the Blood Angels are unique. No other chapter carries such a burden. No other warriors fight their own nature as fiercely as they fight their enemies. In them, we see the price of greatness. The red thirst is the longing for a lost ideal. The Black Rage is its tragic mirror, where love turns to madness and memory becomes a battlefield. Together, they are the twin pillars of the chapter's eternal war with themselves. Across the stars, whispered in static-laced vox channels and muttered through the halls of disquieted watch fortresses, there is a growing sense of unease. Something is changing within the Blood Angels. The red thirst, long feared and half understood, appears to be evolving. What was once a manageable madness hidden behind rituals and silence is slipping its chains. Incidents are more frequent. Brothers who never showed signs before are now waking from blood-soaked dreams with their hands curled into claws. Victories are marked by excesses. Enemy corpses mangled beyond recognition, allied soldiers eyeing their crimson-armored companions with growing suspicion. The chapter's apothecaries speak in hushed voices of gene seed decay rates that edge dangerously upward. Their records, many sealed even from the chapter master, indicate a subtle but undeniable pattern. The red thirst is surfacing earlier in a Marine's life. What once took decades to awaken now emerges in a handful of years. Neophytes undergo the rites of ascension only to break down in the early trials, overwhelmed not by the rigors of combat, but by dreams they cannot comprehend. Blood rites are more elaborate, more desperate, as if the chapter is attempting to appease something they no longer control. Some of the most disturbing stories come not from battlefields, but from within the fortress monasteries themselves. In deep catacombs beneath Baal, custodians have reported shrines desecrated not by heretics, but by blood angels themselves, lost in fugue states, scratching Sanguinius' name into stone with bare fingers, moaning his final cries over and over. In one case, a veteran of 5 campaigns was found kneeling in a blood-filled baptismal pool, unmoving, his eyes rolled back, whispering, "He dies again and again and again." There was no enemy contact, no trigger, just an eruption from within. Veteran sergeants have begun adjusting their combat formations to keep afflicted brothers farther from allied regiments. Commanders are embedding more chaplains into strike forces, not for morale, but for containment. The number of brothers consigned to the death company has spiked in the last century, even among successor chapters traditionally more stable. Some commanders fear that their own warriors are hunting battle simply to lose control, to justify the thirst with carnage. A deeper concern has begun to stir among the chapter's librarians. Through psychic scrying, they have detected an increasing resonance between afflicted blood angels and warped disturbances during engagements. The red thirst is no longer a private madness. It is beginning to project, to echo. On one world, during a campaign against the heretical cult of the Bleeding Eye, civilians reportedly suffered shared hallucinations, visions of angelic slaughter, of red-winged death, days before the blood angels made planetfall. The librarians are terrified. If the thirst can now reach beyond the body, if it can scream into reality itself, then it is becoming something else. Something alive. Some among the first company have started carving purity seals with unfamiliar litanies, personal oaths not sanctioned by the Codex, but desperate pleas to Sanguinius to take back his pain. Others claim that the Emperor's light is dimmer when the thirst is strongest, that in those moments, faith becomes hollow, replaced by hunger. The chaplains deny this, of course. They cannot afford to let fear infect the ranks, but fear is already there. It is scrawled in the margins of the Codicium Angelicum. It echoes in the silence after a battle, when blood still stains the floor and no one wants to speak of what they saw. These signs point toward a chapter in crisis, not one broken by enemy blades, but hollowed from within. The red thirst has always been an affliction, but now it is something more. It is growing, evolving, learning. It feasts not only on blood, but on time, memory, legacy. It is no longer a shadow of the past. It is a storm building toward the future. When Robout Guilliman returned, and the Primaris Marines marched forth from the vaults of Belisarius' call, hope flickered briefly among the Blood Angels. Perhaps these new warriors, perfected, enhanced, born of a gene-forging craft, untainted by the scarring of the heresy, would be free from the red thirst. For a moment, there was silence in the chapter's hidden catacombs, a stillness as the Primaris stood under the gaze of the statues of Sanguinius. But that moment has passed, and with it, the illusion of salvation. At first, the Primaris displayed astonishing control. Their combat records were immaculate, their loyalty unquestionable, and their psychic profiles disturbingly clean. Too clean. Veterans of the Blood Angels noted an eerie detachment in some of the Primaris, a lack of sorrow, of aesthetic yearning, of the soul-deep tragedy that defines their legacy. But as the months wore on and these warriors bled beside their older brethren, something began to change. The flaw was not absent, it was merely delayed. The red thirst struck the Primaris like a forgotten debt. Where it had once taken decades to manifest in firstborn Marines, it bloomed within Primaris within years. And when it came differently. More violent, less subtle. Older Blood Angels described the thirst as a creeping ache, a gnawing edge on the soul. But for the Primaris, it was an eruption, an immediate, total assault on their psyche. Some collapsed mid-battle, snarling eyes bloodshot, claws tearing at the air. Others withdrew completely, catatonic for days, their dreams thick with crimson rain and angelic screams. The Apothecarian is divided. Some argue that the Primaris gene seed was tampered with too heavily, that Call's tinkering stirred dormant parts of Sanguinius's legacy best left buried. Others claim the flaw was never genetic at all and thus could not be engineered out, that it is spiritual, inherited like a curse, and even the most advanced clone cannot escape it. Mephiston himself has remained strangely silent on the matter, though he has requested more librarians be assigned to oversee Primaris squads, especially in prolonged engagements. That silence speaks volumes. What makes this development especially disturbing is how rapidly the Primaris fall. The Red Thirst doesn't seem to toy with them as it does the Firstborn, it consumes them. Within some successor chapters, entire Primaris companies have had to be disbanded, their members scattered among Death Company watch lists or quietly reassigned. The Flesh Tearers report that their new Primaris recruits are already showing signs of deeper instability than even their worst Firstborn predecessors. If this is the future of the chapter, then the future is bleeding at the seams. And yet, there's a deeper, more insidious pattern. Primaris Marines who fall to the Red Thirst do not just become blood-hungry, they seem drawn towards something. Their movements, their speech, even their combat patterns begin to resemble ancient battle rites from the Age of Darkness. One Primaris brother, under psychic interrogation, recited a poem known only to Sanguinius's inner circle. Another painted his armor in the pre-heresy colors of the Ainc Legion without ever having studied them. These are not coincidences. These are echoes. Some among the librarians theorize that the psychic wound left by Sanguinius's death is not just affecting the Firstborn, it is reaching out, claiming anything connected by blood or spirit. The Primaris in this theory are not free of the flaw, they are beacons for it. Their new, unscarred souls make them perfect vessels for the Red Thirst's next evolution. They are not immune, they are amplifiers. What began as a promise of redemption is fast becoming a warning. The Primaris were forged in a crucible of science, reason, and hope. But hope does not erase legacy. It cannot silence the scream of a dying angel. And in their bright new eyes, the thirst finds fresh reflection. It sees not the end of the flaw, but its next beginning. There is a growing theory, unspoken in official records, but whispered fiercely in the halls of librarians and amongst the shadowed conclaves of the chaplaincy, that the Red Thirst is not a static affliction but a psychic phenomenon, a feedback loop resonating through the warp. The idea is simple, yet terrifying. The flaw feeds upon itself. Each act of bloodshed, each scream of rage, each moment of madness echoes outward, reverberating through the immaterium and returning stronger, sharper, deeper into the souls of those who carry Sanguinius blood. It is not merely a curse, they say, it is an engine of psychic amplification. Imagine the mind of every blood angel as a glass, half filled with memory, pain, and the echo of their Primarch's fall. In isolation, a single mind might bear the burden, but they are not isolated. They are bound, by blood, by vision, by the Emperor's design. Their dreams brush against one another, their grief bleeds across the veil. And in that communal resonance, the thirst finds fertile ground. Every brother who falls deepens the signal. Every eruption in battle sends a spike through the psychic plane, reinforcing the loop. The flaw does not merely persist, it feeds on the belief in its inevitability. Librarians have begun to note anomalies in their meditative sessions. Patterns emerging from disparate dreams, shared visions among squads stationed galaxies apart. One scribe described a sequence of chants repeated by 5 different Marines from 5 different successor chapters, each never having met the others. The words, when arranged in sequence, formed a broken hymn once sung in Sanguinius' private chapels during the Great Crusade. How did they all recall the same phrase? How did the memories survive when the records were purged in the scouring? The answer, some say, is simple. The warp remembers what minds echo often enough, and in the warp, thought is form, emotion is substance. When enough blood angels scream with the same sorrow, the same thirst, the same furious denial of their fate, something begins to coalesce. Not a daemon, not a god, but perhaps an echo of Sanguinius himself, twisted by anguish and obsession. A psychic construct born not from corruption, but from grief too deep to fade. A spiritual revenant, howling across the veil, reaching into every son who carries his blood. If such a presence exists, if the Red Thirst is not simply a psychic echo but a developing entity, it may explain the recent intensification of symptoms across the chapter and its successors. This also raises a deeper concern. If the thirst strengthens through repetition and shared trauma, then every new generation of blood angels is born into a stronger current. They are not merely inheriting genetic flaws, they are entering into a spirit chorus already mid-verse, one whose song grows louder with each death, each mourning, each plea for deliverance. The flaw is no longer just historical, it is temporal, it is evolving in real time. The rituals of containment, meditation, art, music, blood rites, may no longer be about psychological balance, but psychic dampening. Each fresco painted, each hymn sung, might be less about honoring the past and more about quieting the future. A desperate attempt to dull the feedback loop, to mute the song before it becomes a scream loud enough to break reality. And there are those who wonder, what if that scream is the point? What if the flaw is driving toward a crescendo? A final psychic breach that will pull something into existence, not from the warp, but from the shared soul of an entire legion mourning their lost father. What if the red thirst is not a flaw at all, but a ritual still in progress? A summoning of a god born from loyalty, pain, and blood? The warp does not differentiate between prayers and curses, between love and obsession, between grief and worship. If the blood angels continue to suffer, continue to bleed, continue to remember, what might they bring forth? And will it be Sanguinius reborn, or something else, forged in the image of his death? The blood angel's hunger is not just a flaw, it is a mythos. A dark legend written not in ink but in blood, fear, and ritual. Among the ranks of the chapter, beneath their glittering cathedrals of flesh and marble, lie the foundations of a belief system that blends reverence, horror, and necessity. They do not deny the thirst, they sanctify it. They give it names, rites, and symbols, and in doing so they wrap their affliction in the robes of devotion, hoping that what they venerate might never fully consume them. Their rituals are strange to outsiders, almost heretical in their aesthetic. Blood is not just a weapon but a sacrament. It is used in consecration, in purification, in communion. Some rites involve the mixing of a fallen brother's vitae into ceremonial inks used to mark new initiates. Others require the blood of slain enemies to anoint the blades of veterans before a campaign. These ceremonies are not superstition, they are containment. The blood angels know that if the thirst is denied, it festers. But if acknowledged, honored, channeled, it can be held at bay. At the heart of these traditions are the sanguinary priests, guardians of both gene seed and soul. They are healers, but also keepers of the chapter's darkest truths. They tend the remains of Sanguinius. They administer the Red Grail, an artifact containing the sacred blood of their Primarch, used in rituals of renewal. Some say that a drop from the Grail can calm the thirst for a time. Others believe it is purely symbolic. Either way, the Grail is a centerpiece of the chapter's myth, guarded with a zeal that borders on fanaticism. Yet not all rites are sanctioned. In the deepest vaults of Baal, and in the cloistered chambers of isolated successor chapters, there are hidden cults, small, fervent groups of blood angels who believe the red thirst is not to be contained, but embraced. They believe Sanguinius died not to save humanity, but to grant his sons a new, ascendant path, a path of eternal predation, divine hunger. These sanguinary cults do not preach openly, but they leave symbols, a chalice split in half, wings painted in reverse, skulls marked with inward-pointing tears. Where they gather, the line between worship and possession blurs. Some believe these cults are remnants of pre-imperial beliefs, older than the Imperium itself, brought by the tribes of Baal before their elevation. Others suspect they are the beginnings of something darker. A proto-religion forming in the warp echoes of the Red Thirst, warping faith into obsession. Chaplains root them out when they can, but even they tread carefully. The line between holy rite and dangerous fanaticism grows thin when your entire existence is built upon blood, and the rituals are spreading. Successor chapters like the Angels in Carmine, the Carmine Blades, and even the Blood Drinkers have begun reporting unique rites that mirror or mutate those of Baal. Each interpretation seems to magnify a particular aspect of the thirst: purity, sacrifice, dominance. In one report, a flesh-tearer chaplain was found overseeing a mass feeding ceremony where aspirants consumed the blood of their dead sergeant in a frenzied trance. The records were sealed, the implications left unsaid. These evolving traditions point toward a dangerous pattern. The red thirst is not just infecting the body, it is colonizing belief. It is becoming doctrine, And as it does, it reshapes the very soul of the chapter. Where once there was a struggle to contain, now there's a temptation to justify, to exalt, to enshrine. This is the most insidious transformation of all. For while blood may be spilled and battles lost, faith is enduring. And if the blood angels begin to truly believe that their thirst is divine, if they rewrite their legends to place hunger alongside honor, then the thirst will no longer be a flaw. It will be a gospel. And from that gospel, a new creed may rise. One no longer anchored in humanity, but in the sacred hunger of an angel who bleeds forever. Baal was always a world of red. Red sand, red skies, red dust drifting like the breath of a dying god. But after the devastation of Baal, it became something else entirely. Not just broken, but cursed. Not just scarred, but awakened. The assault by the Tyranids shattered more than the chapter's homeworld. It ruptured the spiritual equilibrium that had kept the red thirst in check for millennia. In the ashes of that battle, survivors speak of shadows that moved against the light, of whispers in the stone, of blood that would not dry no matter how hot the sun burned. The Tyranids came to consume, to strip the world of biomass. But in doing so, they tore open a deeper wound. The psychic resonance of Baal, already humming with 10,000 years of pain, was laid bare. Millions died. Brothers perished in agony. Entire shrines were annihilated, their sacred geometry defiled, their relics sundered. What remained was a world saturated in death, not just the physical kind, but the kind that lingers, howling in the warp. The red thirst did not fade in the wake of this catastrophe. It surged. Many of the blood angels who survived the siege emerged changed, not just battle-worn, but spiritually disoriented. They began reporting dreams of Sanguinius not as a guiding light, but as a silent specter, watching from the edge of reality with eyes like black holes. One captain, a decorated hero of the 9th Company, fell into catatonia days after returning from the surface of Baal. When he awoke, he had carved into the floor of his chamber the same phrase repeated over and over: "He weeps beneath the sand." The surviving librarians grew wary. They began treating Baal not as a shrine world, but as a contaminated relic. Their meditations were clouded when performed upon its surface. Their foresight narrowed, their senses blunted. Some suspect that the psychic trauma of the Tyranid invasion did more than harm the blood angels. It may have opened a tear in the spiritual membrane surrounding Baal, allowing the full weight of the chapter's psychic inheritance to bleed out unchecked. There are dark rumors that some of the new generation, forged after Baal's devastation, are different, that the planet's ruined biosphere has affected the genocide in unforeseen ways. Apothecaries speak of subtle mutations. Neophytes born in Baal's ruins exhibit accelerated onset of the thirst. Their blood rituals are more intense, their dreams more vivid. They chant ancient songs no one taught them. These recruits, raised among ash and broken statues, do not merely revere Sanguinius. They seem to grieve him with a knowledge too deep for their years. And Baal itself seems to respond. A recent storm, known now as the Crimson Veil, swept across the planet's equator with winds that whispered in low Gothic. The words could not be recorded. Machines failed, Vox systems scrambled, but every Marine who stood in that storm claims to have heard a message. He is waiting. No source could be identified. No natural explanation was sufficient. The chapter does not speak of this publicly, but the memory lingers, heavy and inescapable. In the wake of Baal's near destruction, the Blood Angels have grown more insular, more cautious. They build their new fortresses deeper underground. They place more relics beneath wards. But the damage is done. Baal is no longer a sanctuary. It is a shrine that screams in silence. A psychic wound that bleeds into every new generation of the Ix Legion. And the red thirst, long whispered to be contained by place and ritual, now courses unbound through the sands, through the stones, through the very bones of the world. If the flaw is intensifying, Baal may be its new heart. A crucible forged in loss and fire. And every Marine who sets foot on its surface carries away a shard of that anguish, etched invisibly into their soul. The red thirst was born from the death of Sanguinius. But on Baal, it may have been reborn, from fire, from blood, and from the broken dreams of an angel who never truly left. Outside the hallowed cathedrals of Baal, the Blood Angel's noble visage is beginning to crack, and those who watch closely, inquisitors, high lords, even rival chapters, are starting to see the truth behind the angelic masks. Among allies and foes alike, there's growing unease. The Blood Angels have always been regarded with a mixture of awe and reverence, their aesthetic sensibilities and martial perfection earning them a reputation as the most beautiful of warriors. But that beauty has always come with a shadow, and now the shadow grows darker. Imperial Guard commanders who have fought beside them speak, off the record, of moments that defy explanation. Entire platoons found drained of blood after battle, with no signs of enemy interference. Communications blackouts that coincide suspiciously with Blood Angel deployment. Even astropaths report psychic flares of overwhelming thirst and sorrow in sectors where the chapter operates. Echoes not of battle, but of internal struggle. The Inquisition watches with sharpened gaze. Some Ordo Hereticus agents have called for full investigation into Blood Angels' rituals and genetics, suggesting their flaw may have reached a tipping point. Rumors abound that several minor successor chapters have been quietly sanctioned, their homeworlds quarantined under pretenses of Xenos outbreaks or warp anomalies. These might be cover-ups, efforts to contain a taint not yet understood. Or perhaps, worse, to hide a degeneration that has already passed the point of no return. Even fellow Astartes grow wary. The Ultramarines, long close allies, have reportedly reduced joint operations with the Blood Angels' successor chapters. There is no open hostility, but neither is there trust. The Grey Knights, known for their psychic sensitivity and strict codes of purity, have declined several requests for combined strikes, citing unquantifiable psychic variables in the battlefield environments involving Blood Angels. It is as diplomatic a condemnation as any chapter is likely to receive. But perhaps the most chilling warnings come from within. Some Blood Angels, especially chaplains and apothecaries, have begun quietly preparing for a future where they may be hunted. Wargear has been modified for rapid self-destruction. Archives of sacred knowledge have been copied and hidden in deep vaults far from Baal. The rituals of mourning have changed. Brothers now carve sigils, not only for the dead, but for themselves, in advance of their own fall. This fear is not paranoia. It is a recognition that they may one day be seen not as heroes, but as threats. And if the Imperium turns its full scrutiny upon the chapter, it will not come with questions. It will come with extermination protocols. The political dimensions of the Red Thirst are as grim as the spiritual ones. The flaw is not just a personal burden, it is a liability. A stain on the strategic calculus of the High Lords. If they determine that the Blood Angels are too volatile, too compromised, too close to the abyss, they may decide to erase the problem altogether. And the Blood Angels know this. In response, they have grown more secretive, more self-reliant. Their data tithes are selectively edited. Their librarians have ceased sharing detailed astropathic logs. What was once a proud and open chapter has begun to fold inward, drawing cloaks of shadow around themselves. They speak of their brotherhood not just in terms of loyalty, but in terms of survival. They are preparing, not just for war, but for judgment. The allies who once knelt in awe before the sons of Sanguinius now glance sideways, uncertain whether they are fighting beside angels or beasts. And though no official decree has yet been issued, there is a tension, an unspoken anticipation, that someday soon a terrible decision may be made. One that will pit honor against fear, loyalty against necessity. And when that day comes, the Blood Angels will not beg. They will not explain. They will draw their blades with the grace of fallen seraphs, and they will die as they have always lived. Beautifully, tragically, and drenched in crimson. If the Red Thirst is a storm, then some among the Blood Angels are its eye. Those rare souls who stand at the heart of the tempest and do not break. They are not free from the curse. No one is. But they bear it with such unyielding grace, such resolute purpose, that they become symbols of what the chapter still fights to protect. Hope. Control. The ideal of the angel unsullied by madness. Take Mephiston, the Lord of Death. His survival alone defies every precedent. He succumbed to the Black Rage and yet clawed his way back, an impossible act. His return was not just a miracle, but a statement. The flaw can be faced and if not destroyed, at least mastered. Mephiston is not a symbol of purity. He is a symbol of dominion, of the soul's power to cage its own demons. But even he admits in rare moments of honesty that the thirst never leaves. It watches, it waits, and the cost of his control is an isolation deeper than most can endure. There are others, less famous but no less vital. Chaplain Lamartez, whose fury walks the tightrope of sanity every hour of every day. He is entrusted with the death company, not because he is immune to their affliction, but because he knows it intimately. It gnaws at him even as he chants litanies of defiance. He holds the line not by distance from the flaw, but by being willing to stand beside it, look into its eyes, and refuse to fall. And then there are the unnamed, the sergeants who recognize the signs in their brothers and guide them gently toward redemption or honorable death. The apothecaries who administer blood rites, not just as rituals, but as therapy. The librarians who ward minds night after night, whispering psychic lullabies through the veil of the warp. These are the quiet heroes, the forgotten ones. Without them, the Red Thirst would not be a tragedy, it would be an apocalypse. Within the chapter, hope does not wear the armor of naivety. It is battered, blood-stained, and grim. It knows what waits in the dark, and still it fights. The Blood Angels do not believe the thirst can be cured, not anymore. But they believe it can be endured, managed, perhaps even redeemed if not erased. Some among them whisper of a final vision, a psychic convergence that may yet bring peace, not by suppressing the thirst, but by transforming it, turning hunger into sacrifice, madness into prophecy. These glimpses of resistance keep the chapter alive. For every brother who falls, another stands and holds the line. Their rituals are not just containment, they are memory. Their art is not just beauty, it is armor for the soul. Every fresco, every chant, every oath is a battle against the darkness within. And the fact that the Blood Angels still function, still wage war in the Emperor's name with elegance and fury, is proof that they have not lost that battle. Not yet. It is this tension, between falling and flying, that defines their nobility. They are not tragic because they are cursed. They are tragic because they know it, and still strive to be worthy of Sanguinius's light. They are not resigned to damnation. They are defiant in the face of it. And in a galaxy where hope is a rare and dying star, the Blood Angels carry a fragile flame. A flame flickering on the edge of extinction, yes, but burning still. Not because it is untouched by darkness, but because it chooses, every moment, not to be consumed. There is a dream shared by many Blood Angels, not a prophecy nor a vision granted by the Emperor, but something stranger. In the silence between battles, in the stillness of red-lit chapels, they see Sanguinius not as a warrior or martyr, but as a shadow walking through blood. His wings are torn, his eyes are blind, he does not speak, and yet he beckons, deeper into the crimson fog that coats their memories. This dream, this hallucination, this psychic echo, has no name, yet it binds the hearts of the afflicted like a hidden star dragging all into its gravity. Some fear it, some revere it, all feel its pull. It is not recorded in the Codicium Angelicum, no chaplain teaches it, no librarian claims to have conjured it. And yet, from Baal to the void fortresses of the Lamenters, from the ritual chambers of the Angels Vermilion to the war-torn sanctuaries of the Flesh-Tearers, the dream repeats. The Red Thirst, they now believe, may no longer be merely a flaw or a curse. It may be a summons, an instinctual call to something beyond comprehension, something waiting in the blood. A convergence not of doctrine, but of destiny. The warp has always responded to emotion. It shapes gods from belief, daemons from nightmares, echoes from trauma. What, then, would be born from 10,000 years of mourning, 10,000 years of warriors trying not to fall? Could the flaw itself have developed a spiritual mass, an aggregate consciousness, not sentient but gravitational? The Red Thirst may not just be memory, it may be a collective psychic migration. The entire Ix Legion, all its splintered lines and heirs, slowly orbiting toward a single unknown endpoint. Some theorize this endpoint is a place, a real-world location where the psychic pain of Sanguinius, the fear of his sons, and the blood spilled by their hands may one day converge. Others believe it is a moment, an event that will trigger the full revelation of what the flaw truly is. But the most radical thinkers, the outcast librarians, the dreamwalkers who no longer speak aloud, suggest it is a becoming. That one day, the Blood Angels will no longer be what they are. That the Red Thirst is not destroying them, but metamorphosing them, evolving them toward a new spiritual state, neither man nor daemon, neither Astartes nor God, something utterly other. And yet, this does not come without a price. for every step toward understanding is shadowed by deeper madness. The more the blood angels meditate on the dream, the closer they come to losing themselves within it. A sanguinary priest named Beloro, a veteran of centuries, was found dead in meditation, his hands locked in an embrace around an empty chalice. His gene seed was intact, his armor unbroken, no wounds, but every cell in his body had ceased to function simultaneously. In his chamber, he had written only one line, again and again: "We must bleed to find him." Is it reverence or a warning? There are also accounts of warriors beginning to exhibit phenomena that defy conventional Astartes physiology. One brother reportedly fought for 6 hours after his heart had ceased to beat. Another, under the effects of the thirst, began levitating during a blood rite, not in madness, but with measured control. These tales are unverified, officially dismissed as battlefield delusions or psychic echoes. But they persist, and they grow. Some among the Imperium's darker corners, the radical factions of the Inquisition, the secret conclaves of rogue psychers, whisper that the Blood Angels may be birthing a new kind of being altogether. A breed of warriors that no longer hunger because they have become the hunger itself. Not predators, but incarnations of memory and blood. What began as genetic deviation may be spiraling into mythogenesis, the literal creation of a god form through suffering, loyalty, and death. And if this is true, if the dream is not metaphor but instruction, then it changes everything. It means the red thirst is not failing, it is fulfilling. That the spiral of pain, the descent into memory and madness, is not a collapse but a cocoon. That the Death Company are not losses, but early expressions of an emerging truth. That every vision of Sanguinius bleeding and silent is not a tragedy, but a promise. To the Imperium, this is a threat. To the Blood Angels, it may be salvation. But for now, it remains a dream. One shared, one feared, one treasured. The dream of an angel walking through blood, eyes blind, wings torn, and yet somehow still moving forward. There are legends within the Blood Angels' hidden libraries, sealed tomes, their bindings inked in blood mixed with dust from Baal's deepest catacombs, that speak of the silence before the angel. Not a prophecy? Not quite. More a recurring pattern, a mytho-psychic tremor that echoes through the chapter's history, like the murmur of thunder before the storm. It begins always the same way, with quiet. The afflicted speak less. Their eyes linger too long on empty altars. Meditation halls become heavy, choked not with sound, but with pressure. Librarians grow restless, the Death Company grows still. And then the manifestations begin. Not physical transformations, not at first. These are not cases of claws bursting from fingers or fangs erupting behind smiles. These are subtler horrors. Perfect warriors waking from stasis, weeping blood, their armor vibrating with an inaudible frequency. Box recordings from sanctum cells playing back reversed chants, voices layered with hidden tones. Tactical data slates overwritten with ancient Ix Legion pictograms, never uploaded by human hand. A low hum in the walls of Baal Prime, audible only to the spiritually attuned, resonating with the cadence of Sanguinius's final breath. This phenomenon, this crescendo of dread, has occurred 5 times across the chapter's recorded history. Each event marked a dramatic spike in red thirst-related incidents, and each time it was followed by a battle of spiritual significance, either a stand that demanded the sacrifice of entire companies, or a confrontation with Xenos or heretic entities that challenged the chapter's very identity. In every case, what came afterward was worse. The most infamous was the Ashen Penance of Radomir's Watch. A Blood Angels strike force, deployed to quell a minor uprising on a feudal world, vanished for 4 standard months. When contact was re-established, they were no longer transmitting in High Gothic, but in a dialect identical to Sanguinius's native tongue. Their leader, Captain Tavares, had etched a new litany into the walls of the planetary shrine using his own fingers. It read, "We drank the silence, and in it we found his final word." No transcript of this word has ever been released. There are those who believe these events are the psychic pressure of something vast and hidden, beginning to press through the cracks. Not an entity in the warp, not a daemon or god, but an emergent truth. An echo of the moment Sanguinius died, compacted like a neutron star into the soul of his sons, now bleeding out across time. If this is true, then the red thirst is not only a flaw or a call, it is the unraveling of a chronal seal. A memory so intense it is becoming real. The implications are staggering. If memory can become reality through shared pain, if the death of Sanguinius is replayed often enough by enough minds with enough psychic potential, could it begin to overwrite time itself? Could the chapter be dragging that moment forward, rewriting the galaxy with its trauma, turning every battlefield into a reflection of that final chamber aboard the vengeful spirit? The silence before the angel may then be something more than metaphor. It could be a literal condition, a stilled heart in the psychic bloodstream of the Ix Legion, building toward a rupture, not one of death, but of revelation, a psychic event horizon, beyond which lies only transformation. Some among the librarians have proposed an audacious and heretical experiment. To use the amplified minds of multiple red thirst-afflicted Astartes in synchronized meditative trance, guiding them toward the moment of Sanguinius's death, not to resist it, but to embrace it fully. To see not just the pain, but the context, the truth. But no chapter master has ever allowed such a thing. The risk is too great. What if the vision cannot be reversed? What if those who go in never return? What if, in reaching for Sanguinius, they pull something else through instead? Still, some try. In silence, in secret, in the hidden hours between battle and right, they press deeper into their dreams, into the blood rivers of memory. They say that if you descend far enough, past the hunger, past the rage, past even the scream, there is a chamber. And in that chamber, something waits. It is not a cure. It is not peace. It is Sanguinius, or something that wears his shape. There is a theory, spoken only in the darkest corners of the Librarius, that the red thirst is not a singular affliction, but a cascading psychic phenomenon. A chain reaction that began with the death of Sanguinius and is accelerating with each generation. This theory is not taught. It is not acknowledged, it is feared. Because if true, it would mean the Blood Angels are not simply victims of genetic legacy. They are components of a larger pattern. A ritual unfolding over millennia, one they were never meant to escape. The proponents of this theory refer to it as the descent spiral. It begins with trauma, personal and collective, Sanguinius' death, the siege of Terra, the failure to save the Emperor. These events were not just historical, they were emotional supernova, moments of such intensity that they tore open holes in the psychic consciousness of the Ix Legion. The red thirst was the first echo, the black rage, the second. But those were just the outer rings. The spiral goes deeper. Each cycle of the spiral is marked by three elements: remembrance, reenactment, and escalation. First, the afflicted begin to dream more vividly of Sanguinius's death, not abstractly, but as if they are truly present. Then, they begin to act it out unconsciously, adopting his posture, speaking in his cadences, repeating his final words. Finally, the escalation. Their thirst grows more acute, their madness more profound. The moment is no longer a memory, it is a psychic recreation, played out again and again in flesh and blood. The theory suggests that each time this cycle completes, the fabric of the chapter's psychic identity weakens. The death of Sanguinius becomes not just a remembered tragedy, but a foundational ritual. A psychic cornerstone around which the Blood Angels have inadvertently built their faith, their rituals, and their very concept of self. And like all rituals, it demands repetition, reenactment, sacrifice. The implications are horrifying. The red thirst in this model is not merely a curse, it is a liturgy of loss, a religious loop that demands blood, pain, and memory to sustain itself. And every time a brother falls to it, he is not just succumbing, he is participating, fueling it, making the spiral spin faster. Some believe the spiral has a purpose, that it is guiding the chapter toward a final convergence, what radical librarians call the crimson moment. A point in time when enough psychic energy, pain, and remembrance will coalesce into a singularity of thought and being. At that moment, the Blood Angels may either ascend to a new spiritual state or collapse entirely, consumed by the echo they've fed for 10,000 years. Already, signs point toward convergence. Battle records show increasing synchronicity in the behavior of afflicted warriors. Entire squads falling to the thirst at once, their movements eerily coordinated, chanting the same forgotten verses, engaging in synchronized, stylized duels not seen since the heresy. These are not isolated incidents. They are increasing, growing, tightening the spiral. Mephiston has remained silent on the descent spiral, but it is said that he has begun mapping psychic echoes across campaigns, searching not for causes, but for alignments. He believes the Red Thirst may be responding to galactic events with unnatural sensitivity, that when the Astronomicon falters or the Cicatrix Maledictum flares, the thirst grows stronger, that it feeds not just on pain, but on cosmic dissonance. This raises a terrible question. What if the Red Thirst is not unique? What if every legion bears its own spiral, some flaw, some memory, some psychic truth that deepens over time, like a stone well filling with poisoned rain? What if this is the cost of being Astartes, that their greatness is not only their strength, but the inevitability of their unraveling? The Blood Angels do not speak of these things. They sing of beauty, they sculpt sorrow, they fight with honor. But beneath it all, the spiral turns, slowly, inexorably, drawing them down not into oblivion, but into a shape of destiny so vast, so terrible, that to glimpse it fully might be to fall instantly to the black rage. Or worse, become its architect. They are not just warriors. They are dreamers of blood, sculptors of memory, vessels of pain. And as the spiral tightens, they walk ever closer to a truth they can never unsee. To understand the Red Thirst is to accept that it cannot be fully understood. It is not just a syndrome or psychic echo. It is a living metaphor, a symbol so potent it has begun to shape reality around itself. The Blood Angels do not simply suffer from it, they become it. And as they do, the thirst itself evolves, growing in symbolism, in cultural gravity, in mythic resonance. Across the chapter, and increasingly among their successors, a strange new doctrine has begun to emerge, not officially sanctioned, but slowly infiltrating their rites, their meditations, their subconscious. This doctrine is known as the Path of the Chalice. It is not a single belief system, but rather a motif, one that recurs in dreams, in scripture, in battle cries, and last breaths. The chalice appears in visions, carved in ancient murals, whispered in death chants, sometimes empty, sometimes overflowing, sometimes bleeding, sometimes shattering. The sanguinary priests have always used the Red Grail as a symbol of their sacred duty, but this is something else entirely. This is the idea that the chalice is not just a relic, it is a road, a metaphysical journey each Blood Angel must walk, whether he knows it or not. At the start of the path is purity. A neophyte, filled with dreams of honor and artistry, sees the chalice as a gift, a vessel for sacred strength. The blood of Sanguinius as metaphor in medicine, but as the thirst grows, the symbol changes. The chalice becomes a wound, a burden. The Astartes feels himself being drained by it, not filled. He is not the one drinking, he is being drunk. And then for some, there is transformation. At a certain point, never clearly marked, but always inevitable, the chalice ceases to be a vessel and becomes a mirror. The Blood Angel begins to see himself within it, his face reflected in the blood, his hands reaching not to grasp it, but to offer it to others, to bleed into it willingly. This stage is dangerous. It is where many fall. The Death Company are filled with such souls, those who believe too deeply, whose reflections consumed them. But for a few, very few, the chalice becomes something else still. A gate. The final phase of the path is not madness, but transcendence, or so the theory goes. A state where the Red Thirst is no longer fought, but accepted, purified, repurposed. Where the hunger does not vanish, but becomes directional, no longer wild, but focused. These Astartes are rare, often secretive. They do not claim to be cured. They do not claim to be whole, but they radiate something different, a stillness, a clarity, as if they see the flaw not as a chain, but as a thread, one that leads somewhere beyond the edge of suffering. Some believe these Astartes are the next step, that if the Red Thirst cannot be removed, it must be mastered, that the chalice is a crucible, and those who pass through it become something new, not post-human, not daemon, something stranger, an archetype, a living myth of balance between hunger and grace. And there is evidence, though anecdotal, that these figures exist. A battle brother on Calth, who stood among the Death Company for 6 days and emerged unchanged. A veteran of the Angels Penitent, who drank from a corrupted grail and remained untainted. A librarian of the Angels in Carmine, who walked into a warp breach singing an unknown hymn, and returned carrying a new, empty chalice he claims was given to him by Sanguinius in a dream. No records officially confirm these stories, but they circulate. They are repeated, and with each retelling, they grow more plausible. Not because they are rational, but because they feel true. The Blood Angels have always lived in the space between myth and memory. They sculpt their pain, wear their grief, make beauty out of horror. The path of the chalice may not be doctrine, it may never be codified, but it resonates because it gives shape to the shapeless, meaning to the meaningless. It offers a way forward, not through denial or extermination, but through transformation. Not every Astartes will reach the final gate. Most will fall before they understand the journey. Some will drown in the blood, others will shatter the chalice in rage or sorrow. But a few will drink deeply, not to feed the thirst, but to embrace the truth within it. That they are not just warriors, not just cursed, they are vessels, and what they carry may one day change the stars. The red thirst is not just a flaw, it is a mirror. A mirror held up to the very soul of the Imperium, reflecting all its contradictions. Nobility bound in madness, loyalty entwined with destruction, hope sharpened into a blade. The Blood Angels stand at the heart of this contradiction. Warriors of unmatched grace and savagery, saints who dream of beauty even as they drown in blood. And now, more than ever, that mirror is beginning to crack. If it is getting worse, and all signs suggest it is, then we must ask not only why, but what that means. Is it a warning? A mutation? A destiny unfurling at last? The Primaris revolution, the psychic bleed of Baal, the echoed trauma of Sanguinius' death, all of these swirl into a storm that the Blood Angels cannot outrun. The flaw is no longer contained within their chapter. It sings through the warp, whispers through battlefields, dances in the blood of successors. It is becoming a presence, a force, a future. Yet even as the thirst deepens, something else emerges, a pattern, a momentum. The chapter is changing. Its rituals evolve, its warriors adapt, its faith reshapes around the flaw instead of breaking under it. This is not regression, it is transformation. And the real terror may be that this transformation is intentional, not by design but by inevitability. That the red thirst was never a defect but a vector, a path. What lies at the end of that path? We do not know. Perhaps ascension, perhaps damnation, or perhaps something stranger, a form of apotheosis born not from purity but from suffering, endured beyond all reason. In the grim darkness of the far future, where gods are made from pain and belief, who is to say what the Blood Angels are becoming? One day, the chapter may fall. But if they do, they will not fall like others. They will not be broken by siege or overwhelmed by Xenos. They will fall inward through the spiral of memory and madness, until what remains is not an army, but a myth, a red-stained psalm written in the flesh of angels. And yet, even now, they fight. Even now, they dream of the perfect moment, the moment before Sanguinius died, when everything still made sense. They carry that moment like a shard of light, buried deep within their hearts. It drives them. It sustains them. And though the thirst screams louder with every passing year, the Blood Angels have not let go of that light. Not yet. So is the red thirst getting worse? Yes, undeniably, but it is also becoming something more. And whether that something is salvation or sorrow, the sons of Sanguinius will face it as they have always done, with blades drawn, wings spread, and hearts full of fire. If this tragic brilliance speaks to you, if the saga of the Blood Angels stirs something deep in your soul, then join us. Subscribe to the channel and help us illuminate the forgotten corners of the Imperium with lore, theory, and reverence. For in this cruel galaxy, every flame of understanding matters, even if it burns red.